All right, hello again, everyone. For this video, we'll be going through problem solving and process improvement. So first, it was Peter Drucker who told us that which gets measured gets improved. This is always true. We must use some sort of metric, some sort of measurable key performance indicators, something that gives us something to measure against. And we'll talk about this more in a little bit here. So we're going to talk today about the PDCA or PDSA cycle. These are effectively the same thing, just different ways of teaching it. We have the plan step, the do step, the check or study step, which are the same step, and the act or adjust. So let's go through each of these. So in our plan step, we define this problem. We clarify the problem. We write that good problem statement. We decide what are the relevant measurables, our lead indicators, our lag indicators, key performance indicators or indices, metrics. What is the stick against which we're going to measure? We go through our five why, our root cause analysis. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And we'll develop our countermeasures, our initial plan. All right, so something that's important for you to understand is the Ishikawa or the Fishbone diagram. I teach the 6Ms method. There are other methods, but I prefer the 6Ms just because it's easier to remember. So the first thing we need is we need a well-written problem statement. A problem statement, and you can research this on your own, it should clearly define current state, future state. It doesn't solve the problem, it just defines the problem. It doesn't blame anyone. It is simply a statement of facts of when, where, and why, how this problem is affecting us. And then once we have defined our problem, we can go through our fishbone diagram. So the first M is machine. So any machine-caused issues. This could be things like a machine is broken down, we have the wrong machine, any of that kind of stuff. Next up is material. So this is generally considered things like we have the wrong incoming raw material. The incoming raw material is out of spec. We used the wrong material altogether. We were supposed to use steel. We used copper, things like that, right? Next is measurement. This could be how we measure things, where we're measuring it. Are we letting parts reach room temperature before we measure them, or are we measuring them while they're still hot? If the coefficient of expansion is too high and our steel is too hot, we might be within spec, and then when it cools to room temperature, then our pieces are too short. Next one is manpower. However you want to define that one. This is our people. Okay, so how are we using our people? Do we have untrained people? Do we have the wrong people? Too few people? Too many people? Anything focused around operators? Any of that kind of stuff. The next one is method. These are the how we do things. So this is an example of a method is always a good example of where we can have things fall into multiple bins. So if we are not letting parts reach room temperature, that could be a measurement issue. Or is it a method issue because that's how our procedures have told us to measure, right? Or is it the operators are not trained on our method appropriately? So don't worry too much about which bin it should go in. Simply that these are 6 different bins that we should look for errors in. This is nothing more than a brainstorming framework. This is not the end-all be-all. We're not always going to have something in each of our 6 bins, but these are simply areas to consider. And then our last bin here is Mother Nature. So this is anything environmental. This is oftentimes heat or humidity, the working conditions, the storage conditions, things like that. All right. So we've talked a little bit about the planning, and we've went through our fishbone diagram. Next, we get to the do step. Do step is nothing more than doing what you want. You implement your plan. So in the plan, you've developed it, and then in the do step, we implement. Then we go through our checker study. We evaluate our results. We look at the KPIs, the metrics, the measurables, lead measures, all those sorts of things that in our plan step, we said were valuable. Then we look for our second order effects. Remember, second order effects are the unintended consequences. These are the things we didn't see happening in the medical world. They're called side effects, right? Second order effects, the things we didn't intend to happen that are happening because of the change we're making. And then we have act or adjust. So this is where we standardize and celebrate our success. So we create SOPs, we codify those changes, we make those changes permanent, right? So if we did the right thing, if it did what we wanted to do, then let's change and do it that way from now on. If we didn't do what we wanted, if we failed, then we need to make an adjustment. So did we learn something? Do we need to make further adjustment? Do we need to correct back? You know, what happens at this stage? And then create the new targets and goals. So if we reduced our waste 10%, can we reduce it 15%? All right, so those are just examples of what we would do. All right, that's going to be the end of this short video. Next, we're going to run through an example, but due to the fact I've had some videos run over length, I'm going to break this one up into a couple of videos.